Hi, everyone. We're here with Dr. Shawn Okpebholo, one of our featured composers and professor of music at Wheaton College Conservatory of Music, which is just outside of Chicago, and from where he is joining us today. Shawn, welcome to NMC.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Great. It's great. I was just saying I was listening to your piece just this morning and I'm really loving it. I think that our audiences will really love it as well. Can you tell us a bit about your work? It's called On a Poem by Miho Nonaka, Harvard Square, and how did this piece come about?
So it's funny. As a composer, I would say my strength is would be like harmony, maybe counterpoint, maybe bigger orchestrations. So at one point, about maybe 8 years ago, I said, you know what, I'm still a composer that needs to grow, right? And I said, I'm going to write a piece for a solo instrument, so I can't hide behind cool harmonies or cool, textures. And I'm going to write for an instrument that I just do not like, the flute. I was like, flute's horrible, right? I should say I have a 180 view of that now. I think flute's like the best
Okay.
instrument. Okay. Um, so I decided to write a piece for solo flute. Just to kind of challenge myself. So it started as like a study piece. I wrote for an amazing flute player that I knew could do anything, Kane Thompson Reduce, and I wanted to base the piece off of a poem one of my colleagues who's a fantastic poet, and so I had great artists collaborators to work with. I just had to write this piece. And it's interesting because this is my most popular piece, performed piece. It's been performed tons of times. And it started out as a study piece because, I just wanted to expand, what I am as a composer, which meant I had to focus maybe on rhythm, maybe different, colors, extended techniques, other things that I felt like was lacking, as a composer. And I learned so much. I love the flute now, so don't worry about that.
It,
And my pieces after that, have been informed by the things I learned from that piece, the risks I took, some of the adventures I had writing this piece, I've used in other works.
Great. We're glad that you're turned around on the flute. Our founding artistic director is a famous world famous flute player, Robert Aitken. So
Okay.
we're glad that you're now a flute fan.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
uh, and now this piece also has a relationship with this beautiful poem with a text. And can you talk a little bit about how the text figures into the music, whether there's tangible differences?
Yeah. So, this may be a controversial statement for a composer, but I think, at least initially, if you have text, it becomes the most important part of the piece. And so I do a lot of writing for voice, where it's song cycle or or different settings for voice, and so I'm used to setting text, but with the voice, they can sing the words, right? But I took the same approach with this, and which is I don't think about a single note, form, architecture, motives, anything until I really engage the poetry. Okay. And so I'm reading the poetry out loud. And the poet obviously is a friend of mine. She's alive, so I'm asking her questions. What does this mean? Here's what I think it means. I have her read it, and it's not until I fully, I think, understand what's going on in the poem, or it's really like inside me, then I'll say to myself, now I can write the music. Okay. Now the poem wasn't, necessarily text painting, there's some elements in the poem there's some text painting, like the drop in the bucket. You maybe can hear that, and some like water sounds maybe. But mostly it's the essence of the poem, which is like, the idea of you're at a place where you feel like you don't belong or lost, but it's the right place to be, and there's all these things are going around, and you're observing it, observing everything. And so I try to capture all these ideas in this piece. I also wanted to, at, she's a Japanese poet, and
Hmm.
and I wanted to include well, I wanted to start the piece out coming from this Japanese musical sound world. So I looked at many different pentatonic scales. There are tons of them, by the way. They're not just the black keys that we just hear. Even though the last part of the piece is more of the traditional pentatonic that we're used to in America and the Western culture. But I looked at different pentatonic scales, what those scales meant, and then also the actual timbre sound world. So the piece starts out sounding like a bamboo flute, a shakuhachi flute,
Hmm.
right? But you can create that sound using alternate fingerings on the flute, on the traditional C flute, and so I wanted to kind of create that sound space too. So yeah, so that's how it kind of related.
No, I'm glad that you asked that question or that you mentioned that about the bamboo flute. It really works really well. And there's all these amazing kind of flute techniques and flute sounds and colors. Now, did you work with a flute player to get these, or did you just come up with them on your own, or how did you?
Yeah, so it's funny. Sometimes I feel like a fraud. Like I should like have like my name and then the flute player. So no. My buddy Kane, he helped me out a lot. So basically, what I did was I just wrote what I wanted to write. I want this sound, I want this timbre, and most of the time, because I studied a lot of this stuff. I look at scores. They're fine. But there are times where I said I really want the flute to do this. Okay, here's how I think it should work. He's like, well, if you do this, you know, you get the same effect, the same sound, and it's more idiomatic, or it's more natural, And so, yeah, like, I do a lot of score study, but also I had a friend a flute player, the person I wrote it for, who helped me with it. I would Zoom with them. This was before Zoom was cool. No, because he lived
Cool.
in Detroit,
Yeah.
mandatory.
Yeah.
He lived in Detroit. I'm in Chicago, and I will say, Kane, play through this passage. I want this sound, and I want this timbre, and then he will help me work it out. So.
Awesome. Awesome. So, and does this process go with your other works too? I mean, what else are you working on right now?
Yeah.
You should know
So I
about.
tell my students, I said, like I'm a brass player, so a former brass player, so I feel comfortable writing for brass. Like I don't, but I tell people, you need to make friends with people who play these instruments, who are good. Okay, not don't make friends just to use them, but have relationships with them, because like my wife, for example, is a violist. She will always know how to write for the viola better than me. Now, I have the creative stuff, I have the ideas, and she's not a composer at all, and she would not even think about creating things. But yeah, so it's like researching for a novel, or or if you're doing some other art form or academic discipline, you do your research. And our research looks a little different. It's either score study, talking to people, playing through things, listen to recordings, and then you can use your own creative ideas, you right, to along with the research to create a piece.
Great. Well, and a couple unrelated questions for you. Like, what are you working on these days? What are some other projects that we can check out that you're working
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of vocal writing. So I'm working on an opera, a chamber opera with the Chicago Opera Theater,
on?
and
Mhm.
I'm working on a grand opera too, which is another
Wow.
crazy thing. And I'm working on a huge song set for three fantastic vocalists and a pianist. Karen Slack, Will Liverman, Reginald Mobley, and Howard Watkins from the Met. So yeah, for some reason doing a lot of vocal writing,
Great.
which is great. Um, and some other the commissions that I have, including extended piano work and things like that. So I'm doing a lot of writing. Uh,
Fantastic. Good.
yeah.
And we'll put your website up in the show notes, and so our audiences can check those out and follow those pieces as they come. Thank you so much, Shawn, for this and for the music and for your thoughts. And I'm sure our audience will enjoy this piece and will want to follow your work. So,
Yep,
and
thank
we
you so
hope to
much. I'm so
see
grateful.
you here. Okay, thanks so much, Shawn.
Thank you. Bye.